Okay, everyone, we are in Shaar Daled, Perek Lamed Beis, getting close to the end of Nefesh Hachaim. And if possible, I'd like to be mevarer a little bit of a difficult sugya. Out of this. We spoke a lot about, not just recently, but over the years, really, the fact that, I'll just give this reminder, that Hashem created the world, at least metaphorically, using Oisios HaTorah. And an ois means the beginning of Tzimtzum, the beginning of the articulation of something which is Ein Sof to something which is finite, a letter. You could see a letter, you could touch a letter, you can erase a letter, you can manage a letter. And those letters turn into words, and the words turn into sentences. And so too, it turns into this world, the world as we know it. And we learned that the whole Torah is the Or Ein Sof, Oraisa, which is coming into this world and manifesting itself not just through the Torah, but through us, because every person is an ois, or what I read from the Gra last week was, not only is every person an ois, but every person is some part of the structure of the letter. Every one of us can relate to one of those things. So some of us are a pei and some of us are a gimel. But the idea is that if we want to find our shirish neshama, the way you find the shirish neshama is to plug into whatever our os is. By the way, it's interesting that when we speak in Hebrew, we talk about oti, oto, otam, my ois, your ois, oischa, her ois, osa. Everything is revolving around the os, yeah? So it's interesting, like in the Hebrew language, Torah Hebrew language, like his os, my os, your os. So the idea is that to connect ourselves to Torah is not just like an instruction manual, but to connect ourselves to Torah is to connect ourselves to the oisius of the Torah, and therefore to the Shirish HaNeshama, and therefore doing our whole purpose in life, which is bringing the Or Ein Sof, the Oraisa, into this world and making the world, doing the tikkun in the world that we're supposed to make and that only we can make. And it's very important that everybody somehow in life comes to the reality of what's our ois. And that's what we've been learning about, and it's very important. But here the Nefesh Hachaim in the middle of Lamed Beis, V'lachein tiknu harishonim zichronim levracha nusach havidui. Does everybody have the place? We see that the Rishonim, when they wrote, Rishonim, I don't know, he means Rishonim, like Rishonim Achronim, he means that early in Klal Yisrael, there was a tikkun of vidui, achet shechatanu lefanecha, that we say on Yom Kippur, that we say when we say vidui. So v'lachein tiknu harishonim zichronim levracha nusach havidui al pi seder hachaf beis oisios. That it's not accidental that it goes in Seder Aleph Beis. The vidui is bedafka in the Seder of the Chaf Beis Oisios, which is, by the way, true of Ashrei and the Perek Kufya Tes of Tehillim. Goes in Seder of Oisios. Why? Kedei lo oirer. Sorry. Let me shut up. Kedei lo oirer. Kedei lo oirer shorish ha'elyon shel nafshay. Asher hi mekusheres v'nechezes b'Torah ha'kedosha l'tara l'kadsha. The reason why we say vidui, according to the Seder of the Aleph Beis, Chaf Beis Osios, is somehow through the vidui, we're being ma'arer the shorish of our neshama. Shorish elyon shel nafshe asher hi mekushares, and that ois, Aleph Beis Gimel Achetche Chatanu Lefanecha Bilotzain. That's a lamed. So Letzonis is an ois lamed. So we say it in Seder Aleph Beis Asher hi mekushares v'nechezas b'Torah Akdosh l'Tara u'lekadsha. Now, what's obviously difficult to understand here, needs hesber, is we understand that we want to connect to our shorish, our neshama, and we understand that this happens through the chaf beis oisius. We can understand that, but what's it got to do with vidui? Vidui has to do with our averos. So how does it work out that somehow or another, when we're saying vidui, we did an avera, and somehow we're connecting by saying al chet shechatanu l'fanecha berechilos b'lashon hara belotzain. Somehow or another we're connecting to that ois, which is our shorish haneshama. It's not the obvious place to look for connecting to the shorish haneshama is by saying over our averos. We understand vidui. Like, I just want to open your minds to the idea that somehow or another it could be that the vidui chatoim is exactly that, which is mar oisius our neshama, shorish haneshama. Yeah, everybody with me? I just want to remind you, because it's not the season, it's not the tshuva season right now, that Lamaisa, the way the Rambam says, there's different parts of tshuva, and tshuva requires azivas achet and kabbalah ala osid. So we have said, okay, I'm not going to do that avera anymore, and I'm going to change my behavior for the future. And then the last part of tshuva is, the Rambam says, "V'yotzi b'svasa mashagamar b'liboy." And now you should say vidui. You should say out with your mouth that which you were gomer in your life. We've explained that a lot in Hilchos Tshuva, but in the context of Nefesh Hachaim, it comes out that vidui is like the soif maisa of tshuva. Vidui is the soif maisa of tshuva, and since vidui is the soif maisa of tshuva, it's somehow or another, like saying the chet is somehow at some point I have to get a less. Yeah, I'm in the middle of a shiur. I'm sorry. Somehow or another, it's a way of connecting to the shorish haneshama. Okay, I hope I'm being clear with all these telephone phone calls coming in. So, does somebody want to explain something here? Rabbi Yaacov, how do you understand this? No explanations. Okay. So the pashut of shad here is that what happens is that a person is, this is what I would imagine, this is the simple pshat, the simple way to learn, that a person is connected to Hashem through the Torah and through the Oisius HaTorah. When you do an Aveira, snip, you've violated that connection, you've torn that connection. And somehow, by saying vidui, or by doing tshuva in general, what we're doing is reconnecting to that or. And when you reconnect to Hashem, vidui being part of it, when you reconnect to Hashem, you're going all the way lamala, and you have like kilu a fresh start. In other words, you're reconnecting. Every time you do an aveira, you're disconnecting. And like if we take it further, like everybody has, Ramach Evarim and Shesagidim, 613 parts of themselves, which are all connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Think of yourself as a puppet. And every time you do an Aveira, snip a string, snip another string. But when you do tshuva, all three parts of tshuva, Zivas Hachet, Kabbalah Ala Osid, and Vidui, So you're reconnecting from the top and you're getting new strings, like something new is happening here. So what's going on with tshuva is hischadshus. Like we know that this is what tshuva me'ava is. It can happen in a moment, in a way that you're machadish. You start. Let's restart. Let's refresh. Let's start with a whole new way of life. That's what tshuva really is. Tshuva me'ava for sure. That's what tshuva really is. And we explain that can happen even in a second. But the proper derech is azivas hachet, kabbalah al-asid, and vidui. Why is vidui part of reconnecting and restarting with HaKadosh Baruch Hu? I'm still in the Pashudik shot. Because I imagine that it's like a relationship. So, like a person does a terrible thing in their relationship. They steal from their partner. They have an affair on their partner. They do something terrible. And you can't just sit down with your friend or your relationship and say, okay, let's forget about the past. Let bygones be bygones. We're going weiter. That would be a nice thing, but it's not real. There has to be some type of a tikkun achet, or some type of owning the mistake that I made before we can, yes, go further with Shuva Me'ava. So like part of the reconnect is exactly this. Part of the reconnect is saying vidui in the Chaf Beis Osios that we're connecting on 22 levels, if you will, the Chaf Beis Osios HaTorah, through the Torah, and that's and restarting our relationship with Hashem, and for that matter, our relationship, not just our relationship with ourselves, but our existence in this world. Like, let me take a fresh start here. Right? Everyone with me on the Pashudik shot? Let's get a little response here.
Perhaps one could say that Zibas Achet and Kabbalah La'asid are not necessarily in direct relationship to HaKadosh Baruch Hu the way one saying Bidui is. Maybe that's the piece that restarts the relationship, because the other is kind of happening internally.
So how to just to articulate it, how does this restart the relationship? Because I'm having a hard time with it. I'm trying to understand how it, like what does it do to say al chet shechatasi lefanacha b'latzain? So now I've restarted my relationship in the Os Lamed with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and you get this hischadshus.
So I think I'll use a mashal. In this country we live in, when something goes wrong with the electricity in your house, you blow a fuse, something doesn't go, you overdid it somewhere. You call an electrician, and every house is wired differently. He's got to go back to the root wiring and understand and get to the root cause of what caused this particular house to fail, and replaces that section of whatever the wiring infrastructure is. I think, Lamashal, it's a little bit the same when we do a chet. We have to understand, when I did a particular chet, part of my relationship with Hashem Yisborach is this base. It was wired into me. I have to fix this base. It manifests itself in some Chalila Avera that had a base in it, because I didn't get my base right. And so now I have to fix the base part of my relationship with Hashem Yisborach. And so I need a vidui that starts with the letter base to restart that, rewire that section.
Okay. Let me try to okay, I'm asking. So it's the detail of the break, the severance of the relationship, the personal detail of the relationship which I violated, and I have to either start with that or end with that. According to the Rambam, I end with that, which is interesting. After he does tshuva, Yotzi b'svasav mashagamar beliba. It's like the end. Like by the time he said the alchet, it's the end, which is a little bit interesting. Let me offer something different. I just want to let's go a little bit further, and then v'chol oid sha'adam kasher v'davuk b'teirasa yisparach u'ba'avasa yishke tamid. As long as a person is completely connected to Hashem's Torah, and he lives in Ahavas HaTorah, af hi tar a love, it will shine back at him, u'mishamarta b'chol drachav inyanav, and keep you and guard you in everything. Shelo yipol bereshas hayetzer, that you won't do this chet again, chas v'shalom, mashakasav b'shmos rabba parshal avin v'avayin sham, which I want to connect this in a minute because this seems like a different thing. Okay, it should be davuk in the Torah, and mainly you're davuk in Hashem. Mainly you have the or. We understand that, but what's that have to do with vidui? Ubemedrash tilim, the mizmor tamanya ape. That's kufyud tes I mentioned, which is goes in the seder of Aleph base, 8 times. Belibi tzafanti imrasecha laman le'echtelach, and there it says, Belibi tzafanti imrasecha, in my heart is hidden your Torah. And if that's the case, David HaMelech said, Laman lo echtelach, I will not do a chet. Ein yetzahara shoyleit el haTorah. Yetzahara doesn't work with Torah. Umisha Torah beliba ein yetzahara shoyleit boy lo nogea bo. Then you're not subject to the usual inclinations to do things wrong. You know, like if you're a Baal Lashon Hara and you're connected to the Torah, belibi tzafanti imrasecha, you won't fall into the trap of Lashon Hara. And a little bit further, and then I'll go back and try to explain. Ubatana deve Elio, Seder Elio, Rab Elio Zuta, Reish Parak Tesdayin. And that's Chazal. And you also find in Ba'avos to Rabbi Nassan. And here we have the following statement: Amar Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Kol anoisen divrei Torah al libay. And this is based on, we have a little bit of this in our Pirkei Avos, that Kol anoisen divrei Torah al libay, that anybody who takes Torah to heart, ma'avirin mimenu asara dvarim kashim, one cleanses themselves from 10 difficult etgarim, challenges in life. And here they are: here hure avera, here hure cherev, here hure malchut, here hure shtus, here hure yetzahara, here hure znus, here hure ishara, here hure avodah zarah, here hure ol basar v'dam, here hure dvarim b'telem. That, by the way, is a pretty comprehensive list of all of our challenges in life. Like everything from taxes to women. all of our challenges in life are in this list here. And when you learn Torah, somehow you're mavir and mimenu. So I'm torturing myself by not explaining what I want to explain. So I want to explain what I want to explain. I want to do the following hakdama first of all. Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, who is the one who said this, is the author of the Zohar, the one who, the big makubal, yeah, Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. What's important to understand is that Rav Shimon Bar Yochai probably was not a bigger makubal than Rabbi Akiva, or Hillel, or Shammai, or Moshe Rabbeinu. What Rav Shimon Bar Yochai did, this is important for me to note historically, what Rav Shimon Bar Yochai did is he took things which was sod, it was a secret amongst the Chachamim, and he was Megala sod. He revealed that secret. Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, was a Talmud of Rabbi Akiva, but for some reason he saw fit in a Shamayim. It was fitting at the time that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai lived to be Megala sod, and to reveal that which was heretofore a secret. He was Megala the secret at his time. it's an important perspective on Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. The Zohar is quoting all the Tanoim that were before him. He's not saying things new. And like if we take it further, let's say the Arizal was Megala more, Pshat and Zohar, Pshat and Kabbalah, and the different side that we have. And probably the Baal Shem Tov was Megala more, and the Gra was Megala more, and the Ramchal was Megala more, and Reb Tzadok was Megala more, or Chaim Volozhin. It's talking about Giluyim accessing secrets that were not known until now. That's what the Giluy Soid is all about. So I want to just note something historically before we go further with this, which I think is important anyways. Why was Rav Shimon Bar Yochai Megala Sod when he was Megala Sod? like why wasn't Rabbi Akiva Megala the Sod? A little bit he was. We have the Oisius of Rabbi Akiva. We have different things. Oisios of Rabbi Akiva, by the way, it's called Oisios of Rabbi Akiva. We have different Giluyim here and there, but like, why was it that Rav Shimon Bar Yochai and his sons decided to be Megala Sod? And maybe the pshat is, Rav Shimon Bar Yochai was late in the game with the Tanoim, by the way. But maybe the pshat is that Rav Shimon Bar Yochai was right after the Asar Arugei Malchus. He was after the Chorban of Yerushalayim and the Chorban of the Beis Hamikdash. He was after the Hadrian decrees. It was at the end of the Hadrian decrees. He went free from the cave when the Hadrian decrees were just ending. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi was the end of the Hadrian decrees. And I wonder if the Gilui Sod had to take place at a time in history when nobody understood what the heck is going on. Meaning, like, the torture of the Jews in the Roman Empire, the killing of the Gedolei Adar, the Chorban Beis Hamikdash. Like, what? There is no pshat. So when there is no pshat, when nobody can say pshat, so some gadol has to come and say sod. Okay, I'll tell you what this is all about. And that's the sod of Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. Everyone understand my point here? And I think you'll find, by the way, that every major Gilui Sod came after something which became unmanageable in Pshat, or Remez or Drush.
You mean he had to do it in order to literally save Am Yisrael from it imploding and exploding?
Right. Like, it's interesting, like Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, like, he didn't say anything new, but he was Megala Torah Sheba'al Peh. He wrote down the Torah Sheba'al Peh as we know it. Like, that was a reaction to the time. So Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, his job was to be Megala the side. What was the sod? And he was Megala. Okay, you say, look, you look behind me, there's a whole Seder HaZohar, and there's thousands of svarim written on the Zohar. But I think, like, Rabbi Yaacov Haber v'Amidoy Alachas. The side here was to, when you run out of pshat and why people are dying and why the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, and Asar Arugei Malchus, you get into sight. So here's the side. I'll be Megala Sod. The Svarim say, like almost all the Svarim say, from the Brisker Rav to Shimshon Me'astrapali, that the Roman Empire, and this is Nogei our Parshias here, the Roman Empire was a kiyum of the bracha that Yitzchak gave to Esav. He gave him a bracha, right? He gave him the second bracha. but he gave him a bracha. And that bracha was miskayim. Even the Gemara says this. That bracha was miskayim in the Roman Empire. That's what they were strong. It's similar to like what the Gedolim have told us that Amalek was niskala with the World War II and the Nazis. It's a different discussion, but Rome was the Bnei Esav. They considered themselves, by the way, the Bnei Esav. They considered themselves the ones that were gypped out of the bracha, and that's why they hated the Jews so much. That Yaakov fooled them, and we should not be the chosen people. But in any case, everything that had happened in the couple hundred years before Reb Shimon Bar Yochai was Imshat made no sense. But then when come along and say that, listen, Imshata makes no sense, but I want you to know that the Romans were the bracha of Yitzchak. So, oh my gosh. I mean, it was a good thing? Of course it wasn't a good thing. Esav a good thing? Of course it wasn't a good thing. But it was a thing. And when Rav Shimon Bar Yochai was explaining, and as you'll learn through Zohar, you'll see that I'm right. Rav Shimon Bar Yochai was explaining the side of history, if you will, and explaining what's transpiring. Like Halavai, somebody today would get up and explain to us what's transpiring, what's going on. We're looking for that Rav Shimon Bar Yochai or that Navi. But he was Megala the side of Esav, as Achi as Esav. Like Mamish this week's parsha. You know, like Yaakov met with Esav. He thought it's going to be a big to-do, like Esav's going to kill him. Esav is coming with 400 men. Is that your niggin, Yaakov? It wasn't such a big to-do. They embraced each other, but there was a Sarai Shel Esav. So the Sarai Shel Esav is an Under Maisa, and the Sarai Shel Esav manifested itself, say the Svarim, in the Roman Empire so many centuries later. I want to share with you what I feel is a deep insight here, and then we'll get back to our Nefesh Hachaim. You know, Yitzchak gave a bracha to Esav. How did that transpire? Why would he give bracha to Esav? And the answer is, Pashat Pshat in the Chumash. Well, he was blind. In other words, the reason why we got the bracha and Esav didn't get the bracha is because Yitzchak was blind. And then the reason why Esav ultimately did get a bracha is because he said, a bracha achas la'avi. Would he only have one bracha? Give me another bracha. And he gave him a bracha. The sharish bracha was the blindness of Yitzchak. I want to put this in your mind. Think blind, think sod. We see the pshat, we don't see the sod. Yitzchak was blind, and he gave a bracha to Esav. Roman Empire. Hasar Aruge Malchus, Charbon Beis HaMikdash. Came from Yitzchak. It's a Yitzchak, Saba Yitzchak, Shekoyach, like you gave a bracha to Esav to be Macher the Beis HaMikdash and to kill Rabbi Akiva. So let's take it a step deeper. Why was Yitzchak blind? And the answer is, say Chazal, before the Gemara, that Yitzchak was blind because when Avram Avinu, his father, took him to the Akedah, they're on the Akedah, so the Malachim were crying, say Chazal, and the tears of the angels fell into Yitzchak's eyes, and he became blind. Okay, now where's our detective work taking us? Because now it comes out that Esav got the bracha because Yitzchak was blind. Yitzchak was blind because he was on the Akedah. Why was he on the Akedah? Because Avraham Avinu put him on the Akedah. So Avram Avinu was Gairem the bracha to Esav, which was Gairem the Chorban Beis Hamikdash. How you talking? Question 2 is, why do Malachim's tears make you blind anyway? Like, okay, I'm assuming it's a metaphor. I don't know if there was like teardrops dropping from the Shemaim. But somehow or another, what does it even mean? Did you ever stop to think about this? What does it even mean that the Malachim were crying at the Akedah and they shed tears? And the tears fell into Yitzchak's eyes, b'diuk, and blinded him. Yeah?
Rabbi?
Yeah.
Is there an Indian also that a person that's blind is considered a mace? It's if he was brought up in the Kedah maybe by being blinded?
Very good. Very good. Let's think about that. The connection between, we have 3 connections really, but I believe when you're blind, you don't see the pshat. But maybe when you're blind, you see more than what you see when your eyes are open. Maybe when you're dead, you see more than when you see when you're alive. Sometimes when we daven, sometimes you close your eyes and you see so much more.
Do we see anywhere that the Malachim cried elsewhere?
No, not that I know. I shouldn't say no. Malachim cried. They made him blind. I think when they made him blind, they opened up his eyes to a much, much deeper meaning. Sometimes when you hear something like it's very, very deep, you close your eyes. Or let's say you embrace somebody who you love very much, you close your eyes.
I don't know if this is related or if it's off topic, but the Gemara speaks about a couple of times that a Kadosh Baruch Hu cries or has shears. I forget which. I think this is the three.
That's why I took back my no very quickly. But I don't know where we find that the Malachim.
Right, that was Malach. There's a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Not.
We find also that the Mizbeach cries. Right, when a man is megarish his wife, even if it's a good thing, Mizbeach marid demois. We also find that we cry is interesting, what is that whole phenomenon? So I think
Rabbi?
Yeah.
Rashi brings the other pshat, that it was the Ketores of the Avodah Zarah. So that made him blind.
Right, which was the Avodah Zarah.
Sorry, what
Avodah Zarah is it talking about?
From his daughters-in-law or whatever, from Esau.
I really think, thank you for that. I really think it's like all Sein Zach. And what I mean to say is what I'm getting to is as follows. That first I thought what I'm about to say sounds like really Reb Tzaddik and like a real Hasidic shipshat. But I think it's actually like everybody holds like this, but we're just afraid to say it out loud. So I'll do the Gilui here. That, an Aveira, for instance, you're talking like Avodah Zarah, is obviously a negative thing. No 2 ways about it. It's obviously a negative thing. Nevertheless, we find that if a person does tshuva gemura, so tshuva me'ava, so that aver becomes a mitzvah somehow. Okay, we've explained this in many different ways, but we find that aver becomes a mitzvah. Sof kol sof. The kateger nasa sanegar here. The aver somehow becomes a mitzvah. Like it's mind-boggling, and there's a lot of Kabbalah to that in terms of the tikkun. But I just want to say, like, something very simple, that nobody wants to do Averis, and nobody wants to do it, have a downfall in any way. Just like, most of us don't want to die. However, it doesn't mean that let's say, talk about the downfalls that we have in life. Life is up and down. Doesn't mean that it's not part of the tikkun. It could be part of the tikkun. But the Rambam in Mer Nevuchim says this, and in the Yad a little bit, says this about avodah zarah gufa. But how's a part of the tikkun? Let's understand, like in a way we could understand. On makam shi'adenu magas. Like I said, it sounds like a Reb Tzaddik, but I think it's Pashat Pshat. Because the fact is that when one has some type of a challenge or some type of a downfall, and this is the big and, you pick yourself out of it. You pick yourself up out of it. So in reality, you're a better man than you were before. Zedonos nasa kischlios. You see, like, we know this, yeah? Like, let's say a person is like a Baal Lashon Hara. That's like my thing. I just talk a lot of Lashon Hara. I like talking Lashon Hara. But into other people's business, I'm doing, and in your mind, you don't call it Lashon Hara, you call it personality analysis, like it's a sport. But if a person then goes through let's say the Sefer Chafetz Chaim, or has some type of a Hisayrus, and I'm just giving it as an example of one of many Averos, but it's Dash by Rabin. You finish reading the Sefer Chafetz Chaim and you say, the Chafetz Chaim has sealed my lips. Pashut. Lo kadai to speak Lashon Hara. It's coming from a negative place within me. What's the matter with me anyways that I'm speaking Lashon Hara? And this is the truth with every Avera. Person is a ganef. Like, a ganef ultimately is like, you don't have enough of your own, you have to take somebody else's. Or a liar. Don't you have enough on your own that you have to say something which isn't true? All these Averas, if we can actually be omed on it, and here's where I'm going. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha b'lashon hara. I'm actually, with the Avera Gufa, I'm doing a tikkun of the neshama. No question about it. It's a tikkun that I wouldn't do, and I'm not suggesting anybody goes and does Averas, but and this is not just Reb Tzadok and Rabbi Nachman. It's like, it's real life, that when a person does something wrong, as terrible as that is, and sometimes you need to pay the price for doing something wrong, even in this world, you go to jail, arba misas based. But nevertheless, on some level, it's min hashamayim. On some level, it's as much as it's a step back, it's a step forward. When you explain how a step down is a step up and a step backwards is a step forwards, you are being magalu the side ha'inyan. Because the pshat is it's bad and the side is it's good. I think, like, if I could try to draw a full circle here, Rav Shimon Bar Yochai was Megala Sod because there was no pshat. But the side he was Megala was, as terrible as this is, I lost my Rebbe. I lived in a cave. In fact, like, all that led to the contribution of the Zayar and the side coming into Gilui. Rav Shimon Bar Yochai was the one who did that. So, like, what he was Megala was at a time that, we need to understand. We need to do something with that blind spot we've had in history for the last 200-300 years. Started with the Greeks at Hanukkah, but went all the way through the Hadrian decrees until Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. That this is something that has to somehow advance us. This is something that somehow has to pick us up. And in reality, it did. No, I mean, not just the Zayar, but the whole Shas Bavli and Shas, the whole Mishnayos was Miskala because of the fact that the Klal Yisrael, with all the tzaras, forgot. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi And he said, Eis lasus l'Hashem efer Torah secha. Even though Torah says not to write it, we're going to write it so that there'll be a Torah l'dairos. Hence, we know something about Torah. It came from Esav. Am I right? And Esav came from blindness. And blindness came from the Mizbeach. And blindness came from the Malachim. So, just such a fascinating but important thing that it was really this, the Malachim shed a tear into Yitzchak's eyes. What that was, the Ramchal says this sentence somewhere, that the tear itself was a chefetz of sod. Like when you're crying, it's like such a tsar and such a frustration, and that we don't know pshat anymore. There's an interesting halacha that in Shulchan Aruch, when do you say the Baruch Dayan Emes with the shame? Baruch Atah Hashem Elokeinu Melech Haolam Dayan Emes. When you're crying, if it's not something which is moitzi dima, you don't say it. What are you saying? You're saying Hashem is good. Atzur tamim polei. Hashem is good. There's a gilui sight at that moment of dima. So everything that's bad about this world is good about this world. The Malachim, these tears came from the Malachim. They went to, it was a Messiah, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Esav. It was a Messiah that went through everything, and that's so. I'm thinking like this, that I hope anybody knows what in the world I'm talking about. but I am saying that, like vidui, in my understanding, it means the following: Al chetche chatasi ba'alef bebeis begimel bedala beheva. The chet itself that I'm enumerating becomes part of the tikkun and reattachment to the Shaar Shemai Neshama. It's not just, okay, I own the Avera, now I can go through a 12-step program. It comes at the end, according to the Rambam. But it means to say that the Avera Gufa is somehow being makasher me to the Seder Aleph base and the Chav Beis Oisius, which, by the way, is exactly what the Nefesh Hachaim says. Chein tiknu harishonim zechronim levracha nusach havidui al pi seder hachav beis oisius kidei lo'oyer shoyer sha'elyon shal nafshay. Asher hi mekusheres v'nechazos b'torah k'doshah l'tahar o l'kadsha. And then with a hemshech gamur, the Nefesh Hachaim brings to us that's what Rav Shimon Bar Yochai said. That all of these different, the list, the completely comprehensive list of challenges in life, we should make a poster out of it. Hirhure Aver, Hirhure Charav, Hirhure Malchus, Hirhure Shtus, Hirhure Yetzahara, Hirhure Zanut, Hirhure Ishara, Hirhure Avodah. All these things, Hirhure, those are the challenges which are going to bring me close to Hashem. That's what Gilui Soid is. Gilui Soid is when something is bad, you can make it into something good. That's what Rav Shimon Bar Yochai did. That's what Yitzchak did. It made us more. It made us closer. It made us bigger in avodas Hashem. Okay, I'm over time, so I'm going to end. But okay, I trust this is some food for thought.
Yeah, we'll be eating forever. Wow, unbelievable.
Yeah.
Rabbi, will you sometime tell us why the Nefesh Hachaim was Megale when he was and what he did?
Right. It's yeah. I mean, I'll tell you if I know, but like it is clear that after the massacres was the Gilui of the Baal Shem Tov and the Gilui of the Gra. And
At the Taz.
Yeah,
the Chelmenick.
yeah, the Helminski massacres.
Mhm.
So, it's you could trace, by the way, in history, like every great Gilui, first of all, every great Gilui has a bad Gilui. So there was, before all that, there was the Gilui of Shapsai Tzvi, which was the wrong Gilui. But, like, Soid wants to be Miskala. Like when you have a secret inside of you, you really want to tell somebody, yeah? It's like, if somebody says to me, can I tell you a secret? Like I say to myself, oh, please don't tell me a secret. This becomes like a burden. Like, when I first became a rabbi, I once said to Rav Scheinberg, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, I said, look, people tell me things in confidence, but can I talk to my wife about it? So he said, your wife? That's the last person that you should talk to. I didn't mean my wife. When we talk to your wife, this is not something you schmooze about. This is a burden that you have to hold and you have to give inside. A side in history is a burden. It's like something which is mit potzetz and mit paretz. That was the Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. That was the side of Esav. And it's like so important to say this over to in your own words, that when we're talking about Yaakov and Esav and Parshas Vayishlach, and Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, who suffered so greatly from Esav, all the way good. Okay, a good Erev Shabbos.
Thank you.
I wish everybody bracha and hatzlacha.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Uh,
Go ahead.